In just 47 seconds, $2.8 million in classified contracts. Kash Patel didn't answer directly. He deflected with FBI protocol. Cameras zoomed closer. The Senate chamber held its breath. What did Senator Blumenthal reveal that made the FBI director's face drain of all color? At exactly 2:47 p.m., Kash Patel walked into the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room like an insider who had seen too many lies. His tie perfectly knotted, FBI badge gleaming, he carried a leather portfolio thick with declassified memos. The mahogany chamber buzzed with reporters. Senator Richard Blumenthal sat like a senator carved in ambition, his American flag pin catching the lights. The Connecticut Democrats' briefing folder was marked classified, eyes only, in red letters. Director Patel, Blumenthal began, his voice echoing through the chamber. Let's start still. Are you aware of Operation Nightfall? Patel's jaw clenched slightly. Senator, I'd need to review the specific parameters you're referencing. That's your first I don't know, Director. Let me be more specific. Blumenthal opened his folder, pulling out a document. Did you authorize $2.8 million in contracts to Blackwater subsidiaries between March and August? The chamber froze. Cameras stopped moving. Even the court reporter looked up. I'd need to consult our financial records to provide an accurate. That's your second. I don't know, Blumenthal interrupted. His knuckles were white, gripping the document. Director, did you personally meet with Eric Prince on July 15th at the Willard Hotel? Patel shifted in his chair, his hands now visible trembling slightly. Senator, I meet with many individuals in my official capacity. Third deflection. Fourth, if we count the hotel question separately. Blumenthal's voice rose. Did you discuss wet work operations targeting American journalists? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Reporters started typing frantically. Fox News cameras zoomed in on Patel's face, which had gone pale. I categorically deny any discussion of illegal activities, Patel said, but his voice cracked slightly. That's not what I asked, Director. That's your fourth evasion. Blumenthal pulled out another document. Did you receive briefings about Project Silencer? Patel's eye twitched. I receive many briefings on various operational matters. Fifth, non-answer. Sixth question, coming. Were you briefed that Project Silencer involved surveillance of Supreme Court justices? Gasps rippled through the chamber. Even seasoned reporters stopped typing to stare. The C-SPAN cameras caught every detail of Patel's increasingly uncomfortable expression. At exactly 2:49 p.m., Blumenthal's aide entered carrying a manila envelope marked Urgent Classified. Intercepts. Winter light filtered through the tall windows, casting shadows across the mahogany desks. Patel noticed the envelope immediately. His breathing became shallow. Outside, December snow began falling, but inside, the temperature seemed to drop even further. Director, Blumenthal continued, opening the fresh envelope with deliberate slowness. Before we proceed to my seventh question, I want to read you something. These are transcripts from NSA intercepts, captured during the blizzard of November 18th, when you thought all surveillance satellites were down. The chamber was so quiet you could hear the heating system struggling. Reporters leaned forward, their breath creating small clouds in the frigid air. Camera operators adjusted their equipment with numb fingers, but never took their lenses off Patel's increasingly panicked expression. Transcript begins, Blumenthal announced, his voice cutting through the winter stillness. November 18th, 11:47 p.m. Voice identified as Kash Patel speaking to an unidentified male, later confirmed as Eric Prince. Patel's face went from pale to ashen gray, the color of dirty snow. His hands, already trembling, now shook visibly as he reached for his water glass. The ice cubes clinked like tiny bells in the silence. Patel on recording, the target list is final. Alito first, then the journalists. Make it look natural. Heart attack, car accident, whatever works. Prince responds. Understood. The winter operations will provide perfect cover. Hypothermia, slip and fall on ice, carbon monoxide in snow-blocked exhaust pipes. The chamber erupted in horrified gasps. Senator Lindsey Graham, normally Patel's defender, buried his face in his hands. The court reporter's fingers flew across her keyboard, trying to capture every word of the bombshell revelation. There's more, Director, Blumenthal said, his breath visible in the cold chamber air. Prince continues, the $2.8 million covers all 4 targets. Warren's the tricky one. She's got good security, but everyone's guard is down during the holidays. CNN's cameras caught Patel attempting to loosen his tie, but his fingers were too numb to work properly. His FBI badge caught the winter light, reflecting flashes across the chamber walls. And here's the most chilling part, Blumenthal continued, pulling out another page. Patel responds, Christmas Eve would be perfect timing. Everyone's home with family. No one expects federal operations during the holidays. The snow will delay investigations. The heating system chose that moment to shut off completely, as if the building was holding its breath. The only sounds were pens on paper and snow against the windows. Even experienced senators sat in stunned silence, their faces reflecting the winter light. Senator Dick Durbin's voice cracked as he spoke. Director Patel, these are allegations of premeditated murder, timed to coincide with Christmas. How do you respond? Patel tried to stand, but his legs were shaking too badly. He gripped the witness table like a man drowning in icy water. These recordings, I need to verify their authenticity. The FBI's own technical analysis confirms their validity, Blumenthal shot back, producing yet another document. Voice pattern analysis, background noise authentication, digital signature verification, all completed by your own Quantico lab on December. Your deputy director signed off on the report. The weight of betrayal settled over Patel like a winter storm. His own agency had documented his crimes. His own people had gathered the evidence that would destroy him. The irony was as bitter as the December wind rattling the chamber windows. Furthermore, Blumenthal continued, relentlessly, we have confirmation that you've already made the first payment. $700,000 transferred to Prince's Cayman Islands account on December 1st, the same day the first snowfall hit Washington. Perfect cover for covert operations. Reporters were now standing, shouting questions, their voices echoing in the cold chamber, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. Security guards moved closer to the witness table, their breath creating small clouds as they prepared for whatever came next. Senator, that's completely outside the scope of 7th Evasion, Director. Blumenthal's voice was now laser-focused, his breath visible in the increasingly cold chamber. Final question. Were you informed that Justice Samuel Alito was targeted for elimination? Silence. 4 seconds. The chamber was a tomb of winter stillness. Snow continued falling outside, each flake catching the late afternoon light like evidence falling into place. Twitter exploded. Patel deadly secret started trending within minutes. CNN broke into regular programming. Fox ends cut to commercial, but not before their cameras caught Patel's complete breakdown in high definition. And Director Blumenthal added, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried through the entire chamber. We know about the backup plan, too. The one where if Alito survived the first attempt, you'd blame it on a lone wolf shooter during his morning jog in the January snow. Patel's face drained of color completely, becoming as white as the snow accumulating on the windowsills. His hands gripped the witness table until his knuckles went white as ice. Senator, I would need to review. Stop. Blumenthal slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the frozen chamber. 47 seconds, Director. 47 seconds of evasions about a $2.8 million assassination contract designed to eliminate America's most senior justice during the coldest winter in decades. The chamber erupted like an avalanche. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Security moved forward through the chaos. Camera flashes exploded like lightning against the gray winter sky, visible through the tall windows. Outside, the snowfall intensified, as if nature itself was responding to the shocking revelations. The Capitol dome disappeared behind a curtain of white, while inside, democracy itself seemed to be freezing under the weight of corruption. Blumenthal held up a thick file with numb fingers. This is a copy of your encrypted communications with Prince. Every payment authorization, every target list, every dead drop location, including the cabin in West Virginia where you planned to hide during the Christmas Eve operations. Patel tried to speak, but no words came. His FBI badge seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds on his chest, heavier than the snow accumulating outside. The heating system had completely failed now, and everyone's breath was visible in the Arctic chamber. The American people deserve to know, Blumenthal continued, his voice cutting through the chaos like a winter wind, that their FBI director authorized contracts to eliminate perceived enemies of the state, starting with Justice Alito on Christmas Eve, moving to journalist Sarah Chen of The Washington Post during the New Year's blizzard, Michael Torres of CNN during the January deep freeze, and ending with Senator Elizabeth Warren during the President's Day storm. The revelations hit the chamber like consecutive avalanches. This time, even the cameras shook as cameramen lost their composure in the sub-freezing temperature. Several senators were now standing, their faces red with cold and outrage. Emergency crews outside were dealing with the worst snowstorm in years, but the real emergency was unfolding inside these walls. Democracy was under attack, not from foreign enemies, but from the very man sworn to protect it. Patel finally found his voice. These allegations are true, Director. The Bitcoin transactions are traceable. The weapons purchases documented. The safe house rentals in Virginia confirmed. Blumenthal's voice was surgical now. You thought the encrypted channels were secure. You were wrong. At exactly 2:52 p.m., Blumenthal produced one final document that made even the seasoned Polichins gasp. This is your personal signature, Director, on a requisition form dated December 10th. Quote, request immediate procurement of untraceable pharmaceutical compounds for field operations. Delivery to Virginia Safe House by December 20th. Unquote. The chamber fell into a silence so deep that the only sound was snow hitting the windows like tiny accusations. Patel's breathing became ragged, each exhale visible in the frigid air, like his lies being exposed one by one. The compounds, Director, were potassium chloride and succinylcholine, both used to simulate heart attacks. Your own signature authorized their purchase, using FBI operational funds. Blumenthal's words cut through the winter air like ice. You weren't just planning assassinations, you were planning perfect murders. Security swarmed the witness table as Patel stood up, swaying slightly like a man walking on ice. His portfolio of declassified memos scattered to the floor like fallen leaves in a winter storm. The FBI badge he'd worn with such pride now seemed to burn against his chest despite the chamber's Arctic temperature. This hearing is recessed, shouted Committee Chairman Dick Durbin, but his voice was drowned out by shouting reporters and clicking cameras. Within hours, protests erupted outside FBI headquarters. Arrest Patel trended globally. Cable news ran continuous coverage with the headline, FBI Assassination Plot Exposed. The snow that had started during the hearing now blanketed Washington, D.C. in an eerie silence. Protesters gathered, despite the blizzard conditions, their chants echoing through the white-covered streets, "Arrest the director, justice for democracy." Their breath created clouds of steam that mixed with the falling snow, creating an almost supernatural atmosphere around the J. Edgar Hoover building. By evening, 3 FBI assistant directors had submitted their resignations. Deputy Director Sarah Chen, ironically one of Patel's intended targets, held a press conference from her office, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The Bureau will not be defined by one man's corruption. We serve the American people, not personal vendettas." That evening, as Patel sat alone in his Arlington office, staring at his resignation letter, he realized the truth Blumenthal had taught him. Sometimes, the strongest weapon isn't a badge or a subpoena. It's evidence, documented and revealed at exactly the right second. Outside his window, the December snow continued falling, each flake illuminated by the streetlights, like evidence accumulating against him. His phone buzzed constantly, with calls from reporters, lawyers, and former allies distancing themselves. The heating in his office had been cut off, whether by maintenance or symbolism, he couldn't tell. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who'd built his career exposing government corruption had become its latest casualty. What happens when a director who built power on classified operations is undone by a paper trail? If law enforcement can't survive transparency, was it ever? Disclaimer: this dramatized story is inspired by real events and public figures. All dialogue and incidents are fictionalized for commentary and educational purposes. This is not intended to defame, but to explore themes of power, truth, and accountability.